Commonwealth from here. And it finally happened. The Nintendo Switch 2 is here, but what is the difference from the current Nintendo Switch? Nintendo didn't give much information, so sit down and let me give you some official and some pretty much leaked answers. In return, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and press that notification bell. Let's start with the hardware, since this, apart from a brand new Mario Kart, is the biggest leap in this next generation of bigger and better. Seeing that the reveal confirmed pretty much every leak, including desktop mouse feature, bigger SL and SR buttons, and the new release buttons for the magnetic Joy-Cons, we know what the Switch 2 is. With dimensions of 270mm wide, 116mm tall, and 14mm deep. Inches added in addition. Overall, it is quite a significant beefing up compared to the Switch's 239mm by 102mm and 13.9mm depth, when we include the Joy-Cons. Same thinness as the 2017 original, but definitely taller and wider. The same goes compared to the OLED's 242mm width, as that was only a minor change, since the Joy-Cons remain the same. But the main reason for the big jump from Switch to Switch 2 is the display, at least 8 inches. The Nintendo Switch started out with 6.2 inches LCD display back in 2017. This one was then expanded with the OLED model in 2021 to 7 inches 720p OLED display. The Nintendo Switch 2, by all reports, does not have an OLED display. Instead, it counters with an at least 8 inches 1080p Full HD display. It is an LCD, but a far better one. And who knows, instead of 8 inches, it could be 8.4. Reports have still been conflicting when it comes to this. Besides, Nintendo is by all indications saving OLED Switch 2 for the traditional, at this point, mid-gen system upgrade. But let's move over to the insides of the system. The Nintendo Switch 2 will run its games through Nvidia's much more powerful custom Tegra T239 chip, which has been both leaked and is being manufactured together with Samsung. The information we have on this one is so detailed that it is pretty much final. A combined CPU and GPU system on chip, just like in the case of the Nintendo Switch's custom Tegra X1 SoC, but with far more power. One of the biggest leaps are hidden in the system's higher memory. The entire Nintendo Switch family of systems has 4GB of RAM, very outdated for the times we live in, while the Nintendo Switch 2 has 6GB times 2, so 12GB of RAM. Of these, it is assumed that a little over 10GB will be available for games after the operative system has taken its share, which is predicted to be between 1 and 2GB. Combined, this massive jump in fidelity should give us handheld undocked performance above the PS4, which is good enough on a 1080p LCD screen, but the real magic is in the docked gameplay, in part possible through reported to improved cooling fans, which are required, seeing that newer Tegra chips get warmer than the X1. One of these is in the system itself, and the other in the dock. The system for its chip has also been tailored for Nvidia's Deep Learning Supersampling, or DLSS, which could allow games to be upscaled to 4K docked, and in some cases in 60 frames per second. A very good candidate for that is the game that was shown in the reveal itself. A true revolution when we look compared to the Nintendo Switch, as the Switch 2 will bring the visuals on Nintendo's own first-party titles to a whole new level. Most likely for the new Mario Kart 9 or 10 depending on the final title. Of the April Direct, possibly also Breath of the Wild 4K. Here is hoping. More importantly, there will be no more 900p and definitely not 720p from Nintendo and most likely third parties. At worst, 1080p on our 4K displays. Nintendo games will look as good as they play, and that is the biggest win for the successor over the original. What will be equally noticeable are the improved load speeds. The Nintendo Switch generation has been dependent on slower eMMC NAND flash memory, and over time overclocking the system, like in the case of Breath of the Wild, has helped, but it cannot compare to the higher read speeds of modern technology, as the Nintendo Switch 2 has built-in Samsung VNAND. All signs point to 256GB compared to 32 on the Switch Basic and 64 on the OLED, and much better UFS 3.1 2100 megabytes per second speeds. Why does this matter? As these speeds are only slightly slower speeds than on the Xbox Series and PS5's SSDs. 256GB is a big jump in storage, but we should be aware that the next-gen titles are likely to be bigger and more expensive. In other words, 256GB might be the mere minimum yet again. We'll still likely be dependent on our microSD cards to store games. And some of us will need to buy new ones, as microSD express cards are said to be fully supported, with the near 10 times higher speed on the Nintendo Switch Successor. With that being said, when docked, there's no real point comparing the Successor to the original, so let's move over to the Undocked experience. And here, after covering the display, let's get into weight. Since the Nintendo Switch 2 is by all indications heavier than the Nintendo Switch, it shouldn't come as a surprise with a bigger display. In addition, the higher specs also require a bigger battery to not eat up too much undocked playtime dramatically. At the same time, it will not be a dramatic gain from Nintendo Switch OLED, which again was only slightly heavier than the regular Nintendo Switch. To get into numbers, the Nintendo Switch OLED with Joy-Cons attached weigh 0.93 pounds or 420 grams. This is heavier than Nintendo Switch at 0.88 pounds or 398 grams, but not by much. For Switch 2, 450, possibly closer to 500, or maybe slightly above that should be expected. But before we move to the sides, let's have a look at the bottom of the system, since Nintendo is sticking to USB-C, the universal charging format, while also upgrading the HDMI, which is necessary since we're going for 4K. Now let's go from the bottom of the system to the back, namely the mechanism which is key to tabletop mode. We all remember that the original Switch kickstand was sadly an unstable mess with one standing position. The Nintendo Switch OLED's wide adjustable stand was a massive upgrade, and the Nintendo Switch 2 continues it with the evolved U-shaped handle solution, which allows us to play in whatever angle we prefer. These will obviously tie with the magnetic Joy-Cons. So let's move to the side and the controllers included in the base price, since the magnetic Joy-Cons have far bigger SL and SR buttons, in addition to the optic sensor that will allow the Joy-Cons to be used as desktop mouses, as demonstrated in the review. All what we have talked about now stands in contrast to the Switch OLED and Switch Basic, which had on-rails detachable Joy-Cons. Add to that, the Nintendo Switch 2 has a new C button under the home button. Function on this one still remains a mystery that Nintendo will not reveal until the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. Though it is rumored that it has some community function in Nintendo's new and improved online experience. The same goes with the Switch 2's analog sticks, where Hall Effect has by all indications removed Joy-Con drifting for good. But there's something that, in my opinion, deserves far more attention, namely build quality. And by that I mean the sturdiness and overall quality of the encasing of all the components found inside. Let's be honest, the 2017 and 2019 Nintendo Switch were not encased with premium materials. Switch 2 just feels more solid and with better materials, much like the OLED back in 2021. Back then, Nintendo didn't mention this crucial difference in build quality on their websites of marketing. For now, they haven't done it as well, but hopefully in the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. But now, let's move to the top of the system, as the cartridge slot will accept both Nintendo Switch 2 games and Nintendo Switch cartridges. We still have an audio jack, but also something brand new, a second USB-C entry point on the top of the system, all to charge the system without required accessories, as we saw in the case of Nintendo Switch charging stand. A solid move through and through by Nintendo in their big collab with Samsung and Nvidia. Now then, let's end with the dock, specifically the old versus new, since you can use the OLED model in the old Switch dock and the Switch Basic in the OLED dock. And though the Nintendo Switch 2 is backwards compatible when it comes to software, that is likely not the case for the new dock, as all signs point to that this one is for Switch 2 exclusively, since the dock has to be significantly wider to fit the significantly bigger system. In addition, it is indicated that the new charger will have 60 watts compared to 39 watts. In other words, this new dock is for Switch 2 exclusive. The new dock, apart from a more sturdy back panel, offers pretty much the same experience as the Switch OLED dock. 2 reported USB ports, Ethernet port, and an HDMI port that will finally give us an upscaled 4K signal on the TV. As for design, I would say that the more rounded Switch 2 dock looks and also feels better than the Switch and even OLED docks. And on that note, when we're not counting the release buttons for the magnetic Joy-Cons, which are on the back, we see that the triggers seem to be digital, not analog, so bigger and better. And by going over all of this, I would say that we have completed a precise and to the point comparison of the Nintendo Switch 2 versus Nintendo Switch. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell to make this video more visible and help the channel grow. Finally, a big thanks to you for watching to the very end, and all our patreon.com/CommonRealm patrons, and in particular to Raw Producer, JC Funk, and Heroes, Holly Wolf, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, and Kintaro. You all rock, and please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.